Hi guys, thanks for clicking on the video. What I'm going to be doing today is a bit of a review on the Viper brand Dloop pliers. Now, according to a lot of reading I've been doing as far as Dloop pliers are concerned, these are supposed to be very good quality, and if you follow the instructions on the back perfectly, you should end up with the perfect length Dloop. Now, the reason why I'm changing my Dloop on my Proforce is because someone pointed out that the Dloop is a little bit short, so at full draw, when I'm turning my hand to the 45 degrees, my release aid is twisting my Dloop, which is also putting a little bit of torque on the string. There's a lot of conjecture online that you can read about whether or not putting torque on your Dloop will actually affect where your arrow goes and all that sort of stuff. Me personally, I haven't done the research. I haven't shot with a long and a short Dloop to try and see if there is a difference. So I'm just going to err on the side of caution, make my Dloop that little bit longer, and if I was getting any sort of effect to my shot from having the shorter Dloop, at least now I'll sort of have a bit of that peace of mind knowing that that's not going to happen anymore. As we all know, archery is the kind of sport where a lot of the challenge is not just physical as far as your skills are concerned, but mental as well. So I'm a massive believer in, if you feel good about your gear and you're confident in the way that you've set it up, you generally will shoot better because you don't have those little bits of doubt floating around in your mind. So what I'll do is get the camera up close so that you guys can see what I'm doing with the Viper Dloop pliers. We'll try and follow the instructions on the back of the card in the box to the letter and see what sort of Dloop we end up with. Now, I've already set my knocking points from the previous Dloop installation, so I know that I don't need to touch that. I know that I don't need to change that. So what I'll be doing is removing the existing Dloop, leaving the knocking points in place, and then tying the new Dloop on top of that. So let's get started. Alright, so I've pretty much got everything here that I think I need. I've got my bow, I've got my Dloop material, I've got a lighter to burn the ends of that, I have a nice Swiss Army knife that my grandfather gave me, and I also have the Dloop pliers themselves. So the packaging is fairly simple, just a blister pack. Doesn't really need to be much more than that anyway. Nice logo at the front there. And then on the back we have a detailed set of instructions on how to use this, and we'll try and follow that as best as we can. So we'll have a nice close look at these pliers. You can see the construction of them looks pretty good. Nice and thick in the metal. You're going to get a good amount of pull on your Dloop without bending these pliers or anything like that. The action on the hinge feels really solid. There's hardly any play in it at all. So from a quality perspective, I would say that these are pretty damn good. So you'll notice it's got 3 fingers at the bottom and 1 at the top. What I like about that is that these pliers will support the string on either side of the Dloop, as well as in between the 2 Dloop knots, while the single jaw on the other side will just pull the Dloop up. So to me, it just makes a little bit more sense that you're supporting the string at all sides, so that when you're pulling on the loop with this particular Dloop plier, you're going to be putting equal pressure on both knots on the Dloop, and not putting too much pressure on the serving in between, because there are some Dloop pliers that don't have those 2 jaws on the side, that one there and that one there. So basically it's just the 2 middle jaws, and then when you pull like that, you're putting a lot of pressure on that bit of serving in between the 2 knots on your Dloop. So, I mean, whether or not that would actually make a difference to your string, I don't know. But like I said, I'm a big believer in feel good about your gear, and I think that this will do a nice job of spreading that tension on your string. So if we have a look at the instructions, basically what they're saying is start off your D-loop knot on the one side, pull it tight, then place the pliers over so that the D-loop knot is in between the middle jaw and the left jaw on the plier. Then pull the excess D-loop material over the middle jaw and tie your knot on the right hand side. And once that's done, use side cutters or something to cut the rope off, leaving about 1/8 of an inch. Burn down the end of the rope to create a small button on the end, let it cool, and then compress the D-loop pliers so that they pull the D-loop nice and tight. And now we'll give this a go. So the first thing I need to do with my D-loop material is cut the end off. This is why I like the Swiss Army knives. They've got all the little gadgets in them. So we cut the end off and we're going to flare this so that when we burn it, we get a nice big ball of melted plastic. Just to give you guys a look what that looks like. As you can see, flared it out really wide. And then we're going to burn this. Now I try not to put the D-loop material directly in the flame. I try and get it close enough that it just starts melting, because I prefer not actually setting it on fire if I can get away with it. So you can see I'm just sort of going towards the flame. As soon as I can see it starts to melt, pulling it out of the flame, trying not to set it on fire. So as you can see, if this will focus, you end up with a nice fat ball of plastic on the end. Now, one thing that I've learned over the years is it's not a great idea to squash that flat. I do have another video where I explain why. So I'll leave a link to that in the description of this one, and also up in the right hand corner of the screen there'll be a little link so that you guys can go to that video as well. So now we wait for that to basically cool down so that it's not going to squish, and it feels like it's already done that. So this is ready to go. What I now need to do is take this D-loop material off of my string. So we'll grab our sharp little blade. Be very careful when you do this that you don't accidentally cut your string, especially if you're using a very, very sharp knife, which I am. I'm always nervous when I do this. It doesn't matter how many times I've done it, it always makes me nervous. Okay, so old D-loop is off. Knock points are intact. New D-loop about to go on. I'll see if I can zoom in closer with the camera so that you guys get a better view of what I'm doing. Alright, so hopefully you can see this pretty well. So according to the instructions, what we need to do is tie the first knot. One thing that I always try to make sure is that when you do the D-loop knot, the end bit with the ball on it is away from where you're going to knock your arrow on both sides, so that the actual loop part on the one side and the other side of your knocking points is closest to your knock, if that makes sense. So basically what I'm getting at is when you do the initial loop, make sure that you're getting the tag end, or this long end, to come through so that it's closest to your knocking points like this. So hopefully you can see what I'm talking about there. Now, using black D-loop material doesn't really lend itself to showing you guys exactly what I'm doing. Alright, so the instructions say once that's done, you're supposed to pull it fairly tight, which I've done. So we'll actually read the instructions so that you guys can see what it says. So it says start by using a bow square to find your knock location, which I didn't need to do because I already had my knock location. Burn the loop end to create a button on the end, which we did. Place the rope on the string as shown in figure 1. Tighten the loop on the left down tight, which is what we did. So this loop is tightened down tight. Alright, so we've done our first knot over here. We've pulled it as tight as we can, and then the instructions say to put the pliers on like that, to go over this way and come up from underneath like that. And to pull it tight, which I've done to the best of my ability. I'm going to pinch it with my finger so that it stays tight. Then we're going to come up through there and then around and through this loop here. And pull it as tight as we can. So now the instructions say what we need to do is cut this at about 1/8 of an inch, flare it and burn it, and then we can pull our D-loop tight. So once again, I'll grab the trusty Swiss Army knife. Cut it off at the appropriate length, flare this so we can get a nice ball of plastic. Leave that to cool off a bit, and then we'll pull this tight. So you may be tempted to completely pull this as tight as it'll go straight off the bat, but I would suggest not doing that initially, because if your peep alignment is out, you want to be able to still move the D-loop a little bit just to make sure that you actually get it in the right spot. But as far as the tool itself is concerned, the D-loop pliers, I think that they've done a pretty good job. So I'll bring it in close so you guys can see what's going on. So you can see here that the D-loop itself is nice and neatly tied. It's perfectplaced on either side of my knocking points as well. I think the pliers did a pretty good job. So that's my test and review of the Viper D-loop pliers. Now, like I said before, I think that the 3 fingers on the bottom do a very good job of supporting the string while you're pulling the loop tight with the top single jaw. Clearly they do a good job of tying a D-loop. It's a really nice, neat looking D-loop. As far as the length of it's concerned, it is slightly longer than the one that I did before. So hopefully that'll help me out a little bit. And basically, if you follow the instructions on the back of the packaging, it really shows you how to tie a D-loop the easiest way. If you're in the market for a set of D-loop pliers, I would recommend giving these ones a go. I don't think you'll be disappointed. So thanks for watching. Leave a like or a comment below. Remember to subscribe to my channel and click the little bell icon so you receive a notification each time I upload a new video. I hope you all have a great week, and remember, just do good shots.